The wind howled across the ruined battlefield like a ghost. Metal scraps clanged softly, swinging from broken towers. The sky was gray, choked with ash. Mason walked carefully, his boots crunching over shattered glass and burnt leaves. He wasn't a soldier, just a scavenger, just a man looking for scrap stools, old tech, wires, anything he could sell to survive. But today, he found something else. A faint sound reached his ears. Not metal, not wind. A whimper. Mason froze. He looked around. The wind paused, as if the world held its breath. The sound came again. Soft. Weak. Like a small creature in pain. He followed. It passed a fallen dropship, under broken stone arches, into the shadows of a burnt-out transport truck. Then he saw her. A girl. No Anne. Alien girl. She was small, curled up on the dusty metal floor, one ankle chained to a rusted pipe. Her skin glowed. Faint lavender, dirty and bruised. Her silver hair was tangled, falling over her face. Her arms hugged her legs tightly. She looked maybe 8 or 9 years old. She wasn't crying, but her shoulders shook. Mason's breath caught in his throat. "Hey," he whispered, kneeling slowly. "Hey there. It's okay. I'm not gonna hurt you." The girl didn't move. Her eyes peeked up large, silver blue, full of fear. Her lips were dry, and blood had dried at the edge of her mouth. Mason reached into his pouch and pulled out a water bulb. He offered it to her. She didn't take it. He opened it and set it gently on the ground beside her. Then he saw the collar on her neck. Thin, glowing with a strange alien code. It flickered every few seconds. The chain on her ankle looked like it had once been electrified, but now it was broken. Loose, left behind, like her. "Who did this to you?" Mason whispered. Still no answer, but her trembling fingers moved. And she reached for something hidden under her cloak. A small metal emblem, circular, etched with a crest of golden flower inside a sun. Mason's heart skipped. He recognized that symbol. It was royal, not just some alien girl. She was someone important. But why would a princess be left behind in a place like this? He looked around. No guards, no ships. Just the distant sound of thunder and smoke in the sky. The girl lifted the emblem and held it to her chest, as if protecting it was the only thing keeping her alive. "I don't know who you are," Mason said softly, "but I'm not leaving you here." Suddenly, he heard a low rumble. Engines. A patrol. They were coming. He peeked through a crack in the wall. A small alien hover vehicle was approaching fast. Inside, 2 soldiers in black armor. Royal soldiers. With weapons. Mason's blood turned. Cold, they were scanning the ruins. Not for junk, for her. And if they found her here, like this. He looked at the girl again. She stared at him, her face calm, but her eyes pleading. "All right," Mason breathed. "Hold on." He grabbed the chain and tugged. It didn't move. He pulled harder, using a nearby pipe for leverage. Snap, the chain broke. Dust exploded in the air. The girl gasped and shrank back. Mason whispered quickly, "We have to go. Now." She looked uncertain, but then slowly she reached her hand out. He took it, and then he scooped her up into his arms. She was lighter than he expected. Fragile, cold. He wrapped part of his jacket around her and ran, through back alleys, over rubble, under fallen beams. The soldiers were getting closer. A red scan beam passed behind them, missing them by inches. The girl hid her face in his chest. Mason didn't stop. He couldn't. He didn't even know why he cared so much. Maybe it was the way she looked at him. Maybe it was because no one deserved to be left like that. Or maybe deep down he was tired of pretending. He didn't care. He reached the edge of the battlefield. A hidden slope led into the forest. He climbed down fast. heart pounding. Only when he was deep in the trees did they finally stop. He set the girl down gently on a patch of moss. She looked up at him, and for the first time she spoke. Her voice was soft, barely a whisper. "You came back." Mason blinked. "You remember me?" The girl nodded weakly. "In the smoke, you passed me once. You looked at me. But you didn't stop." Mason swallowed hard. It did remember. A week ago, in the same ruins, he'd seen a flash of movement. A figure, but he thought it was a trap. He'd kept walking. "I'm sorry," he said. She smiled, a tiny, broken smile. "But you came back." She reached out and touched his chest right over his heart. Human heart. Warm. Mason stared at her in silence. She was more than just a girl. She was something the whole galaxy had forgotten. But now, she was his responsibility. And they were not done running. Ash fell like slow snow as Mason moved deeper into the dying forest, the alien girl in his arms. Every few steps, the old leaves cracked underfoot. The air was thick with smoke, and memory like the trees remembered the war. Mason kept his eyes sharp. He knew this zone. Half the trees were burned. The rest were diseased. He'd once seen a wild beast tear through a patrol here. That wasn't even the scary part. He paused behind a thick tree trunk and listened. Nothing, no drones, no engines, no voices. For now they were safe. The girl stirred in his arms. Her lavender skin was damp with sweat. Her eyes half closed. "You okay?" he asked quietly. She blinked slowly. "Tired. We can't stop yet." "Just a little. More, all right." She nodded, barely. Mason knew he had to find shelter. She wasn't strong enough to walk, and he had no med supplies. His old hideout wasn't far, but it was risky. If anyone tracked him. Still, he had no choice. He moved fast, weaving between trees, ducking under broken branches. The girl held on to him now, arms around his neck. He felt the warmth of her breath. On his collarbone, she was real, alive, and someone wanted her gone. But why? Who chains a royal child and leaves her in a battlefield? Something didn't make sense. They reached a rocky outcrop. A narrow passage led into a dark cave. Mason stepped inside. It was a small shelter just big enough for 2 people. He'd used it once to wait out a plasma storm. Inside, he had a blanket, a fire core, and 1 emergency ration pack. He placed the girl down gently on the blanket. She coughed soft, weak. Mason opened the ration pack. It wasn't much, some protein jelly and water drops, but it would help. He offered her the jelly. She stared at it, confused. "You've never seen food like this." She shook her head. "We eat sky fruit. Yeah, not around here." He took a drop of jelly on his finger and gently touched her lip with it. She flinched, then slowly licked it. Her face lit up. She reached out for more. Mason fed her slowly. Her hunger was silent, careful, like she didn't want to offend him. She ate like someone who hadn't had food in days, maybe longer. When she finished, she looked up at him. "Why?" "Help me," she asked, voice faint. He hesitated. "I don't know." That was the truth. He wasn't a hero. He wasn't even a good man. But something in her eyes, something broken and brave, had pulled at something inside him. "You remind me of someone," he said. She tilted her head. "Someone human?" "No. Someone who needed someone." The girl went quiet. Her fingers reached into her cloak again. She pulled out the metal emblem, the golden flower in a sun. She placed it between them. "I'm not normal," she whispered. "I figured I was hidden. My name is Vela. My mother is Queen Saleya." Mason blinked. That name, Saleya, ruler of the Altari system, one of the oldest monarchs in the galaxy. The woman who stopped 3 civil wars with her voice alone. This girl, this child, was her daughter. Why would they leave you like that? He asked. Vela looked away. They think I'm cursed. Cursed. She nodded. The prophecy said I would bring ruin to the crown. So, they locked me away. Even Mother, she was afraid. Mason felt a chill in his spine. He'd heard of ancient alien prophecies, but he never believed them. Still, the way she said it, with such calm sadness, made it sound real. I don't care about curses, he muttered. I just care about getting you safe. Vela's eyes filled with something close to tears, but she didn't cry. Instead, she reached out her hand and placed it on his. You're strange. For a human, she said softly. You're strange. For a princess. They both smiled. But the moment ended fast. Outside, the sound of engines. A soft red pulse lit the cave entrance. They found us. Mason hissed. He moved fast, grabbing the fire core and tossing it into a corner to draw attention. Come on, he whispered, lifting her up. She wrapped her arms around him again. But before they stepped out, Vela pressed her finger too. The stone wall, a symbol, glowed briefly. What did you do? Mason asked. I marked the path. For who? She looked up at him. My mother. The cave behind them darkened. The mark faded, and the two vanished into the trees once more. The sun was rising, if you could call it that. The sky over the war-torn moon was a pale orange fog, and the light never really touched the ground. Mason moved carefully between the trees, the princess still in his arms. Her name, Vela Code. In his mind, Princess Vae Ladot. He had no plan, no ship, no safe zone. And now? Someone was hunting them. He crouched beside a shallow stream and let Vela drink from her hands. Her silver hair was brighter now, the dirt fading, but her face still looked pale, scared. Mason checked the tracker on his old wristpad. No signals behind them. But that didn't mean they were safe. Royal patrols used cloaked drones and silent scouts. They wanted her. They would find her. She sat beside him, her small hands touching the moss. They're coming, she whispered. You feel them? She nodded slowly. I can sense the royal blades. The ones trained to end me. Mason blinked. Your own people sent assassins after you. Vela looked down. Not all. But someone inside the palace wants me gone. The pieces were coming together. She wasn't just a missing child. She was a threat to someone in power. A pawn in some royal game Mason didn't understand on, didn't want to. But he'd made a choice. He wasn't going to leave her. All right, Mason said, standing. We'll keep moving. There's an old smuggler tunnel a few miles north. If it's still active, we can get off this moon. Vela looked at him, curious. Why do you risk so much? He shrugged. Because someone should have helped you a long time ago. She smiled faintly. Then her head turned. She stood up quickly. They're close. Mason followed her gaze. Through the thick trees, silence, but then a blur. Something fast. Something black. Moving from tree to tree without a sound, Mason's pulse jumped. Run. Me grabbed Vela's hand and sprinted behind. Them three figures appeared from the mist. Tall, thin, wrapped in black armor with no faces. Their blades shimmered silver and curved, like crescent moons. Royal assassins, silent, deadly, and fast. One of them leaped forward and sliced through a tree as if it were paper. Mason ducked under a fallen log, pulling Vela behind him. The ground shook and energy blades slammed into the soil just inches away. Vela's eyes glowed faintly. She reached out hand. A wave of invisible force pushed one assassin backward into a tree. Mason turned, stunned. "You have powers? I wasn't supposed." "Two," she whispered. "That's part of the curse." He didn't have time to ask. They kept running until they reached a small cave hidden behind a broken ridge. Mason shoved a boulder in front of the entrance and pressed his back to the wall. Panting, Vela sank to the ground, hands shaking. "Vale, find us," she said quietly. "Not right now," Mason said, catching his breath. "We have a few minutes." She looked at him. "You need to go." He frowned. "What? I'm the one they want. They find you, they'll kill you too. Please, just leave me here." "No," she blinked. "But I don't leave people behind," he said firmly. "Not again." She stared at him, stunned. "Someone once begged me to stay," Mason whispered. "And I didn't. I walked away. She didn't survive." Silence fell between them. Vela leaned against him slowly, her head resting on his shoulder. "Then I'm glad you stayed this time," she said. Suddenly Mason's wrist pad beeped. A signal. He looked down. A royal ship was landing. Not far, but the signal wasn't coming from the assassins. It was coming from above. Someone else was arriving. "Another ship?" Vela asked softly. "Yeah." Her eyes widened. "The Royal Crest. My mother's ship carries it." "Maybe it's her." Mason narrowed his eyes. "You sure?" She stood, shaky but hopeful. "The mark I made in the cabot sent a call. It used old royal codes." Only she would answer that. "But what if it's a trick?" Mason asked. "Then you stay behind," Vela said, bravely. "But I need to know." Mason looked at her, this tiny girl, standing in the middle of a war-torn moon, hunted by her own kind, still hoping her mother hadn't abandoned her. He nodded. "All right. Let's go see who's coming." The sound of the dropship grew louder. As they neared the ridge, trees shook gently with its descent. Dust rose into the air. Mason crouched with Vela behind a stone ledge, peeking through the thick ferns. A sleek royal vessel was landing in the clearing below, dark purple metal with gold edges, glowing softly under its engines. The ship had no flags, no banners. But right on the nose, above the cockpit, was the golden flower in the sun, the royal crest. "Looks like yours," Mason said quietly. Vela nodded slowly. "It's hers, I think." "Think isn't enough. I have to see her." Before Mason could respond, a hatch opened on the side of the ship. Royal guards stepped out, tall, armored, carrying plasma spears. And behind them, a tall woman in flowing robes. Her skin shimmered faint silver. Her hair was long braided and held by golden clips. Her icy blue scanned the forest. Vela's breath caught. Her legs moved on instinct. "Mother." She tried to rise, but Mason held her back. "Wait," he warned. "How do we know she's not here to finish the job?" Vela froze. That doubt, small, sharp, and real, cut through her. But she shook her head. "I need to know." Mason looked into her eyes. She wasn't a helpless child anymore. She had something stronger, now, resolve. He sighed and stood with her. "Fine," he said. "But if anything feels wrong, we run. Understood?" She nodded. Together they stepped out of the trees. The guards noticed first. They raised their spears, stepping forward in formation. The woman held up her hand. The guards froze. She took one step toward them, then another, and then her lips trembled. "Vela," the queen whispered. Her voice was different from what Mason expected, not cold, not sharp. It sounded tired, sad, full of something long. Buried grief. Vela stared at her. Then her knees wobbled, and she dropped her weight against Mason's chest. He caught her instantly. She wasn't fainting. She was afraid. "I can't move," she whispered. "She's here." "Just walk," Mason said. "You're not alone anymore." With his arm around her, they took slow steps down the ridge. The guards parted as they neared. One of them looked confused, another surprised. But the queen, she dropped to her knees, right in front of her daughter. She opened her arms. "Vela, forgive me." For a moment, the world was silent. Then Vela let go of Mason's hand and took a slow, trembling step toward her mother and stopped. She looked back at Mason, and without saying a word, she turned around and ran back into his arms. Everyone gasped. Even the guards. Vela hugged him tightly, burying her face in his chest, and whispered, "You're the one who stayed." Mason stood still, holding her. He didn't know what to say. The queen lowered her head, eyes welling with tears. "I thought keeping her hidden would keep her safe," she said softly. "But when I lost her, I blamed myself. I sent scouts to find her. But someone in the court intercepted the mission, turned it into a bounty." Mason's eyes narrowed. "That's why the assassins came." The queen nodded. "Yes, someone feared what she would become." "She's just a kid," Mason said. "She's also a symbol," the queen whispered. "And symbols are dangerous." Vela finally let go of Mason and turned to her mother. "Why didn't you protect me?" she asked. "I tried," the queen said, "but I didn't understand the danger inside the palace. I believed hiding you was the answer. I was wrong." Vela walked slowly to her mother, then hugged her. The queen broke down, pulling her daughter close. For a moment, Tit was just a mother and child. No guards, no royalty. Just love and guilt trying to fix what time had broken. Mason turned away, giving them privacy. But one of the guards stepped forward. "You," he said sharply, pointing at Mason. "Human, who are you to touch the bloodline?" Mason looked up, ready to snap back. But the queen spoke first. "He is the reason my daughter is alive." She stood, her hand resting on Vela's shoulder. "He risked death. He fed her. He protected her when even her own blood wouldn't. For that, he will not be questioned." The guard stepped back. Vela looked up at Mason again, smiling. "You didn't let go." And in that moment, across galaxies and species, a bond stronger than titles or blood was born. Mason didn't relax, even as the queen wept with her daughter in her arms. Even as the guards lowered their spears and stepped back, something inside him stayed tense. His instincts, sharpened over years of surviving in dark corners of the galaxy, were whispering that something was off. This felt too easy, too smooth. He scanned the treetops, the ship, the guards. Their armor was polished, their faces blank. Not a single one looked shocked to find the lost princess alive, except for one, near the back, a young alien woman in gray robes, clearly not a guard. Her eyes kept darting between Vela and the queen. Her hand clenched something at her belt. Mason remembered her face. She was one of the observers during the bounty auction on the pirate moon, quiet, always watching. Now she was here, and Mason didn't believe in coincidence. "Vela," the queen said softly, pulling her closer. "I brought the ship to take you home." The girl leaned into her, but her voice was unsure. "What about him?" She pointed at Mason. The queen looked up. "The human will be rewarded, of course." Vela didn't blink. "He comes with me." One of the guards shifted uncomfortably. The queen gave a slow smile. "Of course!" But something in her tone made Mason's stomach tighten. Suddenly, the quiet was broken. A loud boom echoed through the valley. A pulse of energy rippled in the sky above, like a beacon being triggered. Mason looked up sharply. The woman in gray robes had activated a signal device. She wasn't part of the Queen's team. She was a tracker, and now she'd called others. Before Mason could react, Queen turned down for just a second. Her royal mask slipped. Her face twisted in panic. "No," she whispered. "They found us." A second ship was entering orbit. Black, angular. Built like a war knife. Royal rebels, assassins. But not silent this time. These were the loud kind, the ones who came to end. Bloodlines and fire. The guards rushed into formation. Protect the Queen. Someone shouted. Mason grabbed Vala's hand. "No," the Queen cried. "Get her to safety." "But what about you?" Vala asked, her eyes wide. "I'll follow," the Queen said, pulling something from her wrist, a glowing crystal chip. She pressed it into Vala's hand. "This is the royal access key. It proves your identity. If something happens to me—" "No," Vala shouted, clutching it. "You said we'd go home together." But the Queen was already pushing her toward Mason. "He got you this far." The Queen said, "He'll get you home." Another explosion lit the sky. Flames erupted behind the ship. The woman in gray robes vanished in the smoke, clearly escaping her failed plan. The Queen turned back to her guards, drawing a sword that shimmered with gold light. Mason grabbed Vala and ran. Not toward the Queen's ship, but toward the trees. "Where are we going?" Vala shouted. "They'll expect us to run for the ship," Mason said. "So we're not." "Then what?" "I still have one last place. Old rebel shelter, deep in the cliffs. It's not pretty, but it's hidden." They ran through ash and smoke. Behind them, the Queen's guards clashed with armored rebels. Vala kept looking back, tears in her eyes. Mason held her hand tighter. "Don't look back. She's fighting for your future now." They reached the edge of the forest stand. Mason found the secret ridge, a steep slope of broken stone that led to a narrow tunnel entrance, half covered by roots and vines. He shoved them aside. "Inside," he called. Vala crawled in, followed, sealing the entrance behind them with a hidden switch. The stone slid into place just as the next blast shook the ground above. Inside, the tunnel was dark and cold. Vala was breathing hard. Shaking, she stayed behind. She whispered. "She's a queen," Mason said. "But she's also a mother. That's what mothers do." Vala looked at him, eyes wet. "Why didn't she run with us?" "Because she knew the galaxy needs you now, not her crown. You." The silence sat between them. Then she opened her hand. The crystal chip glowed faintly in her palm. "What do I do with this?" "You survive," Mason said, "and you lead." Asterisk, the old rebel tunnel was cold and damp. The walls were cracked stone, black with time, and water dripped somewhere in the shadows. Mason lit a soft lamp and placed it between them. Vala sat on the dusty ground, hugging her knees. Her hand still held the glowing royal chip. It pulsed with a faint golden light, her mother's final gift. But her eyes didn't leave the sealed stone door behind them. "She stayed," Vala whispered, voice trembling. "She stayed to fight." Mason nodded, crouching beside her. "She gave you a chance to escape." "That means she believed in something?" "No," Vala said. "She believed in me. But I don't know who I am anymore." "You're her daughter," Mason said, "and you're stronger than you think." Vala looked down at the chip. "Do you know what this is? Some kind of ID?" "More than that." She slowly turned it in her fingers. "This chip holds royal access, but also hidden messages. Memories, secrets the crown doesn't want shared." Mason leaned closer. "Secrets?" Vala gave a small nod. "My mother always said, truth is heavier than a crown." Then she pressed the chip to the stone floor. A flicker of golden light spread outward. Holographic lines formed a circle, then an image appeared. A tall alien figure, standing in a grand hall, Queen Saleya, but younger. Her face was calm, her voice soft. "This is my last message to you, Vela," the recording said. "If you are seeing this, it means I could not return." Vela gasped. She knew, she knew she might not make it. Mason placed a hand on her shoulder. The Queen's voice continued. "I was wrong to hide you. Not because of the danger, but because I denied you a chance to choose your own path. I let fear guide me. Fear of the prophecy." The image shifted. A glowing document appeared beside the Queen's face. Old Altari script scrolled across the air. Mason frowned. "What is that?" "The prophecy," Vela whispered. "The one they feared." The Queen's voice returned. "They said the child born of the eclipse, my child, would bring the end of the crown. They feared ruin, collapse, betrayal, but I finally saw what it truly meant." The image changed again, this time showing a burning palace, falling walls, and then a small figure standing among the ruins, holding out a hand. "Not to fight, but to lift someone from the ground. The crown does not fall by war," the Queen said. "It falls when compassion replaces control, when kindness overrules fear." Mason's chest tightened. "She's saying you change things," he said. Vela stared at the image. "I was born during the eclipse. They thought I'd destroy everything." "You will," Mason said, "but not with fire, with hope." The message ended, the light faded, and silence filled the cave. For a long time, neither of them spoke. Then Vela whispered, "I don't want a crown." "You don't need one," Mason replied. "You just need to be someone better than those who chased you." She looked up at him. "And what about you? What do you want?" He hesitated, then smiled slightly. "I just wanted to get paid for scrap metal." Vela laughed softly for the first time. "But now," he said, "I want to make sure you make it back. You still have a mother out there." "But what if she's gone?" Vela whispered. "What if she didn't survive?" Mason leaned closer, his voice steady. "Then we carry her truth. Both of us." Suddenly, his wristpad buzzed. A signal, faint, weak, but real. He checked it. A private code, royal encryption, from the Queen. "She's alive," Mason said. Vela's eyes lit up. "Where?" "Nearby." The signals scrambled. "She's hurt, but she's sending short pulses." Vela stood. "Then we go now." Mason pulled out his old pistol and charged it. "We move quiet. They'll be looking for us." The stone door shifted aside, and they stepped into the unknown again, this time, not to run, but to bring the Queen home. The forest was quiet again, but it was not peace. It was the silence before a storm. Mason moved fast, scanning the trees. The signal from the Queen's beacon was getting stronger. But it blinked irregularly, short bursts, sometimes fading, sometimes flickering. "She's injured," he whispered. Vela didn't speak. Her face was pale, but her steps were strong. The glowing chip hung from her neck like a pendant now. She didn't hide who she was anymore. The message had changed her. Not just the Queen's words, but everything Mason had done for her. Every time he carried her. Every time he stood between her and death. Every time he didn't let go. Up there, Mason pointed, stopping beside a fallen tree. Vela stepped forward. A quiet gasp escaped her lips. There beneath a shattered tree trunk and broken stone lay her mother, the Queen, alive but barely. Her arm was twisted under rubble. Her long hair was soaked in ash and blood. A broken spear blade was stuck through the fabric of her robes. Mother." Vela shouted and rushed to her. The Queen's eyes fluttered open. She saw her daughter and smiled through the pain. "You came back." Vela fell beside her, grabbing her hand. "I never left." Mason helped lift the tree limb. Its muscles burned, but he didn't stop until the Queen's body was free. Blood poured slowly from her side. "She's bleeding bad," Mason said, checking her vitals. "We need a med pack. Now." "The ship," Vela said. "If we reach it, there's med supplies." Mason looked around. Too risky. Enemies still searching. But the Queen coughed and shook her head weakly. "There's a fallback. Transport. I called it before I fell. Hidden, 10 clicks east." Mason nodded. "We'll get you there." He bent down and once again lifted a royal figure into his arms. Only this time, she was the one broken. And the daughter she led the way. The journey was hard. They moved through mud, fire-damaged trees, and broken ground. Mason carried the Queen with both arms, while Vela scanned the path ahead with the chip as a compass. As they reached the final ridge, a small ship came into view, half hidden by vines. "Untouched. We made it," Vela breathed. But suddenly, "Stop. Right there." A sharp voice echoed from the shadows. 6 rebels stepped out with weapons drawn. Their armor was red and silver, elite enforcers of the rebel faction that wanted the royal bloodline erased. The leader, a tall alien woman with one golden eye, stepped forward. "Hand over the girl," she demanded. Mason placed the Queen down gently and stood between them and Vela. "You're not taking her?" he said. The rebel leader scoffed. "You're human. You don't belong in this war." "She's just a child," Mason said, stepping forward. "But none of you saw her when she was starving. None of you carried her through ash and fire. None of you stayed." The rebels raised their weapons, but before anyone could fire, Vela stepped out. "Alone, no one has to die," she said. Her voice wasn't loud. It wasn't angry, but it was clear. "Your war is with fear, not with me." The golden-eyed leader raised an eyebrow. "We were told you would destroy the crown." "I will," Vela said softly. "Not with weapons, but with change." She held up the glowing chip. "This contains every royal secret, every lie, every truth. I will share it all. Not to shame my mother, but to end the power games." The rebels hesitated. Even the leader looked unsure now. Then, Mason did something strange. He stepped back and gestured toward Vela. "Look at her," he said. "That's not just a princess. That's hope." The rebels slowly lowered their weapons, and the leader stepped forward. "Then show us," she said. Vela walked toward her mother. Kneeling, she placed the chip into the Queen's hand and whispered, "It's time to rest. Let me carry it now." The Queen smiled through tears. "You already are." Hours later, the fallback ship lifted off. The Queen rested in a healing pod. Mason stood near the window, watching the broken planet grow smaller. Vela walked up beside him. "You're going to disappear after this, aren't you?" she asked. "Probably," Mason said. "I'm not a royal. I don't belong in palaces." She shook her head. "You belong where someone needs you." He looked at her, and she reached forward and hugged him. Tight, warm, real. The cameras from the bridge caught it. A young alien princess hugging a human. The image spread across the stars. And the war that had been building for decades paused. Because sometimes peace doesn't begin with treaties or weapons. It begins with a hug.